What's going on, Dub Nations? We are just a day away from the Warriors play-in game that I know we are all upset to be taking part in. We got some major news to discuss on Jonathan Kuminga and Golden State's postseason rotation, as there were some noticeable absences from the Clipper game on Sunday. Next, we'll also get into a Jimmy Butler injury update, as he did have a late game collision, was limping around a little bit, and his status as far as being 100% for the play-in game versus Memphis is a little bit up in the air at this point. But before we get into all of that, if you want the Warriors to go out there and beat the Grizzlies and secure themselves a playoff spot, go down below and hit that thumbs up icon. Like today's video. Do not jinx it. Don't be the guy that, if Golden State ends up losing this game, didn't like the video and didn't do their part. So go down below, hit that thumbs up icon if you want the Warriors to beat the Grizz. All right, so the noticeable absences from the Clipper game on Sunday, and we talked about it a little bit in the post game and preview for the Grizzlies game. Kaminga and Gary Santos both did not play. Didn't see the floor for a single second against the Clippers in the overtime thriller. And, we were learning a little bit more about that decision made by Steve Kerr. If you remember, we saw the tweet yesterday from Anthony Slater that was early on in the ball game when Gary Payton checked in what was supposed to be Jonathan Kuminga's normal rotation spot. Slater said GP2 entering the game will recently have been Jonathan Kuminga's first quarter rotation slot. The word pregame is that Kuminga was not a part of Steve Kerr's scripted rotation today. Could change, and we know that it didn't change. Steve Kerr was obviously asked about this in the post-game presser, and this is what he had to say about shortening the rotation up in the last game of the season. He said, "We've just found a group since Jimmy got here that we're pretty comfortable with. Gary Santos didn't play either. Guy's been our highest plus-minus guy over the last 2 months. Both he and Kuminga have been really impactful players for us. And it doesn't mean they're out of the loop going forward. It just is how this game played out." And it's interesting that Kerr kind of had more highly regarded things to say about Gary Santos than he did Kuminga in that quote. And Kerr did inform Kuminga pregame that he wasn't going to play, that he wasn't not going to be featured in the rotation. And this is a little bit interesting because, we've seen his role, I guess, a little bit decrease over the last couple weeks or so as, Golden State's tried to get back to the way that they were playing when he was injured, for lack of a better term, when he was injured and when Jimmy Butler was first becoming acclimated to the roster. And it's crazy. He did put up 34 points, 10 rebounds last time they played the Clippers, but Kerr decided that it was the best course of action to, go with rotations and lineups. That did not include Kuminga. And you know what? To be quite frank, I don't blame him 100% because Jonathan Kuminga has not been good since he's come back from injury. He's been incredibly inefficient, has not been able to space the floor. And it's not like he was a great floor spacer prior, but, man, he just has not been good. And, he's a ball stopper. He's a player who, takes bad shots and doesn't really play within the flow of the offense 100% of the time. And Kerr just wasn't willing to risk that type of, mismanagement and clunkiness that Kuminga brings to the offense when he's out on the floor. They could not afford a stretch where they weren't scoring the basketball. And there were stretches where they weren't scoring yesterday, but at the end of the day, if Jimmy Butler is going to play 48 minutes in an overtime game against the Clippers, Draymond going to play 40 minutes, there isn't that much room for Kuminga to be out there on the floor. Kerr said a couple days ago that he's seen now that Jimmy, Draymond, and Kuminga out there on the floor together doesn't really fit. And, that's unfortunate because we've all had high hopes for Jonathan Kuminga, but he just hasn't lived up to the reputation. And, when Kuminga was injured and when Jimmy, was in this lineup and Golden State was firing all cylinders, they were awesome. They were 12-2 in the first 14 games since that Butler was playing for. And the numbers that they put out there on the floor were amazing. A 121.6 offensive rating, that would be the best in the NBA over the 82-game stretch of the regular season. A 109.6 defensive rating, that would be top 5 in the NBA over an 82-game stretch. And then the free throw attempted per game. I don't know how much this correlates with Kuminga, but it's just the style of basketball that they were going after. They were taking 25 free throws a game. That would rank number 1 in the NBA over the 82-game season. And you know what? Since Kuminga has returned back to the lineup, the entire season for Golden State, which Kuminga was a part of the vast majority of, the Golden State was only taking 20 free throws a game. So this stretch that they were playing their best basketball of the season, they were taking over 5 free throws a game more than they were without Jimmy Butler in the lineup. And, is Kuminga done for good? I would say no. His future with the organization is definitely murky, but we could potentially see him again in this postseason run for Golden State. And Steph Curry had this to say, a little bit of words of encouragement for JK. He said, just to be ready, this is what he told him. These are the test of a young player in this league, especially with our team. You never know when your moment will be there. It wasn't his time tonight. Against Memphis, it could be a game where he makes his presence felt. Don't let outside noise of the locker room, the tension that might come from it, distract you from your ability to make an impact when your number is called. And I thought that this is an interesting nugget because Steph mentioned that Kuminga could be a part of this Memphis game. Yeah, he was not good in the 3 games that he played versus Memphis this season. 9 of 31 from the field. In the first 2 games, the one before he ended up getting injured spraining that ankle on January 4th, he was 5 of 25 from the field. So really just was not good in his appearances. And Dalton Johnson painted a little bit more of a picture about how Kuminga's performed against Memphis. 10.7 points per game, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. So basically the player that he's been since returning from injury, not a good one. 29% from the field, 33% from 3, a 74 offensive rating, a 126 defensive rating, and a minus 21 in the box plus minus. It's just not good. It's just not good, and I don't blame Steve Kerr for not wanting to take the risk of that, just messing up Golden State's chemistry at the end of the day. I mean, I'm tired of beating around the bush. Jonathan Kuminga messes up the Warriors' chemistry, and they are a better team when he's off of the floor. And I think the rest of the team knows that. I was listening to the Warriors Plus Minus podcast with Anthony Slater, Marcus Thompson, and Tim Kawakami, and reports from that pod came out that the locker room isn't necessarily rallying around Jonathan Kuminga here, pushing for him to get out there on the floor, getting in Steve Kerr's ear that he should be out there on the floor playing with them. That's not really the case at this point. And, the players can't make decisions based on how this roster changes from, season to season. But the front office can. And this whole situation with Kuminga has quite frankly been malpractice, in my opinion. They didn't give him the extension that he wanted in before the season started. He wanted way more money than he probably deserved, and we've seen that picture play out now. We know he's not a $35 million a year player. But if that wasn't going to be the case, and you knew that probably wasn't going to be the case around the trade deadline, why didn't you trade him? Why didn't you say to the Nets, here's Jonathan Kuminga, we would like Cam Johnson, and the Warriors would have another 40% three-point shooter out there on the roster right now that can play with Steph, Jimmy, Draymond out there on the floor. Like, total organizational malpractice, and now Jonathan Kuminga is probably going to leave for nothing, or if Golden State can manage a sign-and trade, it's not going to be for a player of Cam Johnson's caliber. Total malpractice from the front office, and it's not, super likely that Jonathan Kuminga is a factor in Golden State's postseason rotation moving forward. What do you guys think, though? Should Kuminga play versus the Grizzlies? Should he be a part of the play-in game? Golden State loses a game that he wasn't a part of, 124-119 to the Clippers in Game 82. Should he be a part of a do-or-die matchup against Memphis on Tuesday? Type P for play, type S for sit. I want to hear from Dub Nation on what they think in the comments below. You know who I would have liked to see in that Clipper game? Gui Santos. And we didn't even talk about him yet. He has been so high on Golden State's plus-minus category, like Steve Kerr mentioned. He is the total equivalent of a player who just doesn't show up on the stat sheet, constantly fighting for extra possessions for Golden State, diving on the floor when, there were a couple instances in the Clipper game where Golden State didn't dive on the floor. They didn't go fight for extra possessions. And at the end of the day, in a very tightly contested game where the figures on both sides are neck and neck, it's going to be about who wants it more. And Gui Santos is a player who wants it more every time he steps out there on the floor. And I hope that he plays against Memphis, because last time that he did, when Curry's massive 52-point game, he generated extra possessions for Golden State. He had 4 offensive rebounds, 6 total in that matchup. If he's going to play solid team defense, hit an open 3 out of the 2 attempts that he gets, and then gives me 4 offensive rebounds, I want Gui Santos playing every single game if he's going to give me that. And it sucks that he wasn't a part of the rotation. I thought that he should have been. And can you necessarily play 10 guys consistently in the playoffs? That's definitely up in the air. But Gui Santos, I feel like, has earned his spot. And keep in mind, when Golden State had gone on this run and been playing their best basketball without Kuminga in the lineup, who was eating Kuminga's minutes? Gui Santos. He was a part of these rotations. He was a part of what Golden State was doing when they were at the top of the league in all these different metrics. So I think that Gui Santos should be a part of the play-in rotation. Hopefully he's out there against Memphis tomorrow because I think he can make some really, really big plays for the Dubs. Next, we will get into that Jimmy Butler injury update that I discussed and previewed early on in today's show. We'll talk about his percentage chance about being 100% for this play-in game in just a moment. But first, I got to tell you guys about our sponsor on today's program, and that is Game Time. Game Time is the best place for last-minute tickets because they got the lowest price guaranteed. I love going to live events, specifically games. Specifically basketball games. And you know what? The best games to go to are NBA playoff games, no doubt about it. I used Game Time last year to go to the American Airlines Center for Mavericks versus Clippers in the first round of the NBA playoffs, and it was an absolute blast. We actually got our tickets, like, no joke, an hour or two before the game because prices were rapidly dropping. Me and Marshall Green here at Chat Sports were just surfing the Game Time app to make sure we got the best deal for the lowest price guaranteed. And Game Time always does that. If you want to go see an NBA playoff game today, get it done with Game Time. They make getting tickets faster and easier, even for hard-to-get playoff seats. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down as it gets closer to tip-off, so if you're a procrastinator like me, this is the best app for you. And it's aesthetically pleasing, super easy to use. With killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, which is one of their best features, make sure you have that toggled so you're never getting hit with hidden fees at checkout. Views from the seat as well, a 360 panoramic view of the seat that you'll be sitting in, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concert, theater productions, comedy shows, and more, because it's not just NBA playoff games. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use that promo code CHATSPORTS like you see in the bottom right of your screen for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, is Jimmy Butler not 100%? Because what happened late in the game against the Clippers absolutely scared me, and especially considering the performance that he had, I needed to be able to replicate something like that again against the Grizzlies. He did take a knee to the quad. Thank God it is honestly the quad, which is probably just bruised up right now from Kawhi Leonard on a drive to the cup. You see the photo right here. I honestly thought that this was knee-to-knee contact, and we were going to be looking at Jimmy Butler potentially missing the game against the Grizzlies. But it didn't seem that bad. He was able to stay in the game. He had a noticeable limp. He was out there kind of hobbling for a little bit, and that scared me. Like, I know Jimmy Butler's the type of guy to persevere and fight through an injury like that and finish the game out. But what does this mean for the upcoming game against the Grizzlies? Obviously, Butler was asked about getting hurt in the post-game press conference in his media availability. And he said this. He said, I'll be all right. Drink some coffee, play some dominoes, and I'll feel better. So glad that he's got that optimistic outlook on this injury. It doesn't seem like he's hurting too bad. Wasn't on crutches or in a boot or anything like that. Noticeably limping out of the media availability. So just seems like a bad bruise right now. And obviously with a 6'8" player who can get downhill like Kawhi Leonard is coming right at your quad, that's not going to be the best feeling in the whole wide world. Butler does expect to play Tuesday versus the Grizzlies though. So this is fantastic news for Warriors fans because they're absolutely going to need him. And when you think about how he performed against LA with the 30 points, 9 assists, he was getting to his spot. He was being aggressive as a scorer, trying to put points up on the board for Golden State. I still felt like there were a couple of stretches, though, where Butler could have demanded the ball more. And he was getting vocal with his teammates about that. And I do think that if Jimmy's playing at that level, Golden State is going to win against the Grizzlies. They're going to have a good shot against the Houston Rockets in the first round of the NBA playoffs. And Butler feels the same way. He says we're going to be just fine. He feels okay about the spot that Golden State's in. He said that we're right where we want to be. We still have meaningful basketball left, and we just got to go out there and do our job. And you know what? He did his job against the Clippers. When other guys maybe didn't show up 100%, I mean, Jimmy absolutely got it done, man. 30 points, 9 assists, a steal and a block, was efficient from the field. And this is a game, Jimmy Butler's taking 20 shots. Like, this is a guy who's normally taking half of that or even less from the field per game. This Jimmy Butler that we're seeing in that Clipper game, that has to be the norm moving forward. He's only dropped 15 field goal attempts 4 times in his Warrior tenure so far. 30 games played, he's only shot 15 shots 4 times. Now, it does get muddled a little bit with his free throws and his attempts going to the line and whatnot, but I got to see more shots going up from Jimmy Butler if we're going to start paying you $55 and $60 million over the next 2 seasons. And I'm looking to make a championship run here. Jimmy's got to be aggressive. He's got to go out there and score, and he's got to go out there and make shots because it's a make or miss league at the end of the day. What do you guys think, though? Will Jimmy be aggressive, and how many points will he score against the Grizzlies? Predict it for me down in the comments. I'll give you guys a little fun question before we signed off on today's show. How many points will Butler score against the Grizz in the play-in game? Let me know down below. And that will do it for today's edition of Golden State Warriors Today by Chat Sports. So glad to be bringing you guys this constant Warriors content. So glad to be playing postseason basketball. We will be live for the Warriors Grizzlies play-in game tomorrow, Tuesday. Be there. It's do or die basketball. We need all the help and the support and the cheers that we can get. So lock us in for the best Warriors content on YouTube, youtube.com/Warriors TV. Go down below. Hit that big red sub button. Totally free. See you guys all in the next one. And as always, let's go Dubs.